It's 6:33 on the 31st of March, and this is the Wastewater Study Committee, and I'm calling the meeting to order. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes. Pardon?
Take roll.
All members are present, all voting members are present.
Yeah,
We have to do a roll
yeah.
call vote then. I don't know.
Yeah, all voting members are present. If we have to vote on anything, we can. So our first order of business is to approve the minutes from, I think it's the 13th and the 20th. So first on the 13th, any edits or changes?
I will move that we approve them.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. You have to take a
I don't think we have
roll
to.
call vote.
All here.
What?
We're all here.
Oh, here. That was the whole reason for not
that's
having the
true.
roll call when we open the meeting.
Yeah, all right, yep, you're right, okay, all right, then it's
Streamlining.
6-0.
All right.
All right, the next order of business.
I'll move that we approve the minutes from March 20th.
Oh, I'm sorry, yep, okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. 6-0.
I have a minutes question. I did the minutes. I'm a fan of minimalist minutes. The AG's requirement for minutes is you got to report who's there and what votes are taken, basically. And I think that is personally sufficient. I'm not a big fan of reading 5 pages worth of transcript dialogue for stuff.
Hey, since I volunteered to do it for tonight, I'm not a big fan either.
Most people have a different view. I plan to continue with that, so.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion minutes are not a transcript.
Yes.
People want the full transcript, they can watch the
Watch the video.
recording of the meeting.
Absolutely.
The minutes are summary of the meetings, obviously recording votes, who's present, et cetera.
Just want to be sure there weren't others who were saying that. So,
No, let's keep it simple, stupid.
all right, I will do that ongoing here.
Okay, all right. The next item is we did submit the 2 expressions of interest. And so we are in the queue and we will hopefully hear back shortly.
Yeah, now, did you get copies?
I did not, but
Okay.
that's okay.
All right.
I mean, I saw the text, which is the only real important thing.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, if you could share copies with the entire committee, don't feel
See, I
don't feel
don't-
obliged to run them through me.
Yeah, I don't have them. And
Okay,
the reason is per Vanessa. The state sends them back to whoever is the point of contact, which
Okay.
is you. She did say that if you want, she will follow up with the one-stop people if you really need to have them.
If she has a copy, she has
Yeah.
a copy of them, right? Of what was submitted. She submitted it, right?
I don't know. I asked her to send a copy and she said she doesn't have it. I don't know if there is a way to output from the EOI system,
Okay.
like to a PDF.
Yeah,
I have all the screen prints, which was what I had sent.
that's
So,
close enough.
okay, yeah, because that's what's
I'll
gonna
follow
be.
up with
yeah.
Vanessa.
Let's get a copy and distribute it to the committee. I think we ought to see what put in there. So-
Okay, yeah.
Sure.
It's too late now if you want to change it.
No, I think
Speak up now.
we're gonna spend a little bit of time later on. And our goal, by the way, is to try and be done before 8 o'clock, because I guess several members turn into pumpkins. I'm happy to join them. When we spoke with Mr. Lombardo, I think he gave us some very, very important advice in terms of we need to find a disposal site. That seems to be, the highest priority. I did get a hold of the CR for the golf course and went over it. I forwarded it on. And it looks to me like there's some wiggle room there. Not a lot, but I've driven trucks through small, tighter spots.
I don't know, it looked bulletproof to me. Whoever wrote that looked very thorough.
Yeah, we do have the right to irrigate.
Okay.
But that was the opening. And, I think the right thing to do is to sit down with the Sudbury Valley trustees. So they hold it, find out, whether they're willing to work with us or not. I think, I would recommend more than open to other ideas would be that Sam and I, since we were select board members, might carry a little weight, might not. To make an appointment, I think we're gonna have to spend a little bit of time saying why we think this is permitted and why this is a good thing. We might want to run that by this body one more time before we go there, but I think sooner rather than later, we need to go to SVT to say,
And we can get a little help from town council on that as well. Look at the CR and suggestions about how we want to describe it.
Has anyone spoke to an engineering company? Does anyone know in New England, have they done a irrigation system year round? And what happens?
I've heard that they have, but I don't know.
But we really, I mean, before you spend too much time, is it physically feasible?
Yeah, Lombardo said absolutely.
It is.
He said
So does
depth
in
of
winter, the
pipes-
water just,
Yeah, depth of the pipes and the water is moving, it's pumped
yeah,
through there. He said that that's not a problem. So, I mean, he claims he's done that in the winter time.
okay, don't know.
yeah, this would be a drip system. Actually, it might be a combination where it might be surface irrigation in the summer and drip in the winter or something like
Yeah.
that. You know. Just,
So that would entail-
that could be another one of my bad
Yeah,
ideas.
yeah, no, but it would just entail, digging out the way.
Well, he
and
said,
they
you
drip
put
in
it
there.
in like a home irrigation system, basically slice the soil, put the pipe in,
Mhm.
you're done. I mean,
Okay.
when my irrigation system was put in, it was invisible almost immediately there. So,
Okay,
Again,
no, I
claims
just wanted to make, it
Yeah.
just seemed like I'm used to 4 feet of frost on certain Januaries.
yeah,
And, how much is gonna percolate into the ground.
and we did question him fairly pointedly about
Yeah.
that. He said, not a
Okay,
problem.
what do you think, Brian? Is this, are we crazy?
No, I don't think we're crazy. I think, it's obviously we have to do the studies to figure out, exactly what length of pipe for the drip systems we need and all that. I think we need to obviously, if that's a disposal site, we also need to think of where the treatment site is going to be and how far away that is. And pumping from that point to this point. And I'm not 100% sure what the drip technology requires. Is it a constant flow? Is it allowed to be on for a while? The flows drop off, it stops, and then on, off. Are they looking for a constant?
We have, at Madison Place, it's cycled. And, it's on a tank, there is a storage tank, basically, and if you get 3,000 gallons in a 10,000 gallon tank, then the pressure
Burns off.
pumps come on and just disperse it.
Yep.
And then, it won't go on again until you get that 3,000 gallons back.
Mhm.
And, it is warmer water, than
Yeah.
actually coming out.
Yeah.
Than conventional water, so I don't, and I am familiar with a lot of irrigation, you can get irrigation, 3 foot rises, let's say, so that the irrigation line's 3 feet down,
Yeah.
unlike your house where it's, 12 inches down.
Yeah.
And then you can make it so it depending on the gravity setup, the fluid can go down at least to the bottom of down to where the distribution lines are.
Yeah.
So you don't have them freezing at night.
Yeah.
They're empty tubes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So you can do all that type of thing, but so like you're saying, it might be feasible, I just don't know. There's some
He was
issues.
very clear that it works.
Yeah.
He did say that there would need to be some hydro-geo studies
Mhm.
to
And I think
confirm.
that's to determine,
Yeah.
what soils are there.
Yeah.
Again, where he noted that it's not excavating out a whole thing, putting in.
Yeah.
Clean gravel or whatever, that it's utilizing the soils are there, so you need to figure out what the receiving capacity is of that soil that's there. And
But to your point, if this worked, which would be obviously an easy, you don't have to go buy something from EMC or something like that.
Yeah,
Question is how far But the primary thing like this, Lombardi is Lombardo.
Yeah.
Suggesting find your recharge area.
Yeah.
But could you send it 3 miles?
Yeah.
You know, what I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
and there's probably nowhere that you guys or anyone here, is there something up on the north side of 85 on the downtown side that is a feasible site for a plant?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think the amount of land we're looking for a plant is less than probably disposal area.
It is.
Considerably, yeah. Yep, again, that's a great question. I mean, there is a sizable hunk of property for the Chinese Gospel Church.
Mhm.
But who knows whether that's available. But fairly close by.
Yeah, I've walked that land
Yeah.
looking at putting apartments there one time.
Maybe a recharge area there too.
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. But anyway, again, the main question in my mind was, is that feasible for the golf course? And technically, it sounds like it is. It's not easy necessarily. What I think we got to do, but worth investigating. So
Well, they could have, Lombardo could come up to the 1 or 2 places they're doing it.
Yep.
And then we go online, we kind of figure out what their challenges were and then how many gallons they did. And
okay, good point.
Um, then, so I mean, I think if we approached, SVD, clearly the next step is go and do a bunch of soil samples to sort of determine what we're really dealing with. And that may actually be more disturbing, although I guess we could probably do that in the winter. That makes sense, Brian?
Yep.
Because when we wouldn't be interfering with people's.
Well, if you did it right in the middle of the fairway, you 90% of the
That's right.
golfers
Perfect.
would be impacted.
Just stay out of the sand traps, right?
Particularly me, so
Notice it.
just stay out of the woods, so.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Did anybody happen to see a comment that was made yesterday on the blog on my Southborough? Not that it's the whatever of, but
It is
somebody commented that the town spends $500,000 a year watering the golf course. I mean, this is something that Bill kind of could straighten out,
Yeah,
but is that,
the town doesn't spend that. The golf course management company may spend that. But we get $100,000 a year from the golf course management company.
okay,
So.
So if we gave them free water, maybe we could sell them our treated effluent.
there you go,
Yeah.
you know,
Change the deal.
yeah,
Their contract is up fairly soon here, so.
there you go,
Yeah.
number 2.
okay.
But anyway,
Um,
another moving part.
So-
Whoever thought you could sell sewage water?
Gray water.
Great water.
Treated affluent,
I know.
and if you put it in a crystal glass.
They did that
it
when they
really-
showed me my plant work.
I would mix
I
my scotch
took
with
a
it
sip,
in a
but I was
heartbeat.
not in for that.
You probably get some vitamins from it too.
Okay, so I think, we kind of have a next step there. So 2 items, well, actually, next item is, Sam and I, and Claire, attended a, meeting on something called DIF, which is a funding opportunity. Because we got to figure out how to pay for the silly thing. And, this is actually quite an interesting idea. The state will allow you to create a district, essentially an overlay district of some sort.
Development.
Mhm.
Financing, basically.
Yeah.
Development.
Yeah, take it away, Sam, because you're the expert.
Relative to speaking. We have a resident, Rob Anderson, who works for Mass Development. And he's actually the guy who reviews a lot of these grants for One Stop and other things. So he's been a wonderful source of information to the extent he can, without being conflict of interest in the thing. But he suggested this, and it turns out there are towns that create an overlay district for development. It can be anywhere we want, doesn't have to be contiguous. But one model is you put it along Route 9, both sides, 1,000 feet, both sides, et cetera. You then get the assessor to determine what the assessed value in that district is today. And then if you do development in that district, the additional assessed value year by year is actually can be allocated for infrastructure funding. So, and some towns use that to actually build these kinds of systems and finance them, borrow against it, and have that borrowing not quite collateralized, but supported by the additional tax revenue that's generated. It's not free money, certainly. And the challenge is how much of that additional tax revenue do you want to allocate for this? You could do 10%, you could do 100%. Voters probably would be happy for 100% because it doesn't go to offset to the property tax rates. But some balance in there is possible to get some additional funding for this. There are some places that have actually done extremely well with this thing. So again, it's a potential financing mechanism. It doesn't pay for it up front. And so that's another challenge is how you do the financing on it to buy the original system installation. But potentially, at least these guys say you can find lenders who borrow for that installation and then pay off the loan through the incremental tax revenue, whichever. So, and there are a number of examples where towns have done that in pretty significant ways. Again, not easy or quick, but it creates an opportunity to take some of the sting out of financing if development occurs as a result of the investment of the system.
Well, has anyone gotten a sense, because there's a little bit of, not all over the map, but down in all these Cape Cod towns that I kind of dove in, 5 of them, all putting in sewers.
Yeah.
Now,
There was one on the Cape that did this. Was it Orleans?
Maybe I can't.
Yeah.
You mean from the meeting?
I know that Easton did it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I took a draft of I made a draft of the minutes
Oh, okay.
from, not minutes, but the conversation. The left-hand side of the room for you guys who are here, this was like my understanding.
Okay.
The 2 guys who are my fact checkers over here,
Oh,
okay? A couple things. So this was
Yarmouth, yeah.
yeah, this was with mass development and it just explains, what they do, the amount to pay for their expertise usually runs in between 25 and 50,000. This is expertise that they will provide the way I understand it. So you guys have to, the way I understand it is to pay them to come up with the correct application, all the logistics, so to speak, to make it come out correctly. They're currently working with, it's in here someplace, Easton, who was approved in 2019, and Yarmouth. What she pointed out, and as Sam said, Rob Anderson is one of the he's the mass development VP or something. And then there's a lady called Amanda Neumiller, and she is the mass development real estate planning expert, so to speak. So they all work together. And if you decide to go ahead with that, and this is funded through a one-stop grant, she has information now, as Al was talking about. Easton has been moving along on this since they got the money in 2019. Personally, I think it's a little bit down the road, but it's a very good thing to have in your pocket. Down the road, meaning for the FY26 submittal for one stop, which is the cycle that we're in now, which means that then the money would have to be spent, if you did get it, it would have to be spent by June of 2026. We're probably a little bit, I'm like you guys, let's go, but we really have to lay the ground to make sure all the ducks are lined up, so to speak. But it's a great, when you talk about how you're eventually going to fund all this stuff, this is another option. So if you guys have any questions on this, just mark it up. I'll get back to Rob with it just to have him verify it, only because it's kind of a good idea.
It is interesting, and they do fund the support the application. The state is interested because it doesn't cost the state any money. So it's a way for them to again, create a structure
Yeah.
where basically if we have improved infrastructure that supports development, then the people who do the additional development, basically pay additional real estate taxes, some of which goes back into the infrastructure piece, which is not a bad concept, actually. But at least, it creates another option to think about here, because I can't think of any great way to get this financed outside of the taxpayers locally. And the more I hear about the third party kind of stuff from a public utility, Alex done a little work on finding a third party to do the whole thing as a sort of a public utility kind of thing. And that doesn't look too promising at this point, as far as I can tell. But that was the only other option that occurred to me. I don't know if you guys have had the experience with others.
Way down the road, what I was gonna say before, has anyone got a sense, like, let's say it's a $50 million project, just throw out a number.
Yeah.
Would you expect to pay 25 from the town and, operational revenue down the road in finance? And can you get 25? Because like, it seems on the Cape, about half of everything is granted. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Half the money is granted, and they do it in stages. So somebody has a $30 million phase going on.
Yeah.
15 million came from, I gotta get the name, there's something agricultural group of the federal government. I don't know why it is, but it showed up.
They're all laid off now, so.
And because it made no sense, agriculture, but the Department of Agriculture grant or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the other half, they have to work internally.
Yep.
If it's to benefit all the townspeople, they do it on the taxpayer. If it's just for the users, they do it for some use moderate betterments, but
Yep.
some use very high betterments.
Yeah.
It might be a betterment for an office building that's sitting there, might be $400,000 or something.
Yeah.
It's not like 10,000 like you're looking up your house.
Well, Rob did say that the state really looks very positively on this kind of a project for state grants, but he didn't mention this agricultural.
Yeah, I should have been prepared.
He's usually up to speed on that
I'll
stuff.
get that and send
I'm
an email.
surprised that he didn't mention anything else.
Well, it showed up in at least 2, if not 3 of the towns as a source of
Yeah.
flow.
I mean, clearly
USDA is all over.
Rural was in the name.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
which we don't typically qualify for.
We're not rural.
Not.
It's kind of like up on Route 30 is pretty
Everything's
rural.
relative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically. I mean, we actually, we're in the top 5 to 10% of per capita income in the state. So we got dinged on the school project because of that. We lost our library funding for the state because we don't need it as badly as others do. So we wind up paying for that in a variety of ways.
So we got to build more low income housing here.
Yeah, right,
Bring that number down.
Lower that number.
Yeah, I think it was,
So with that DIF, what exactly would be presented to town meeting for them to?
so,
Basically an overlay district, I think.
Okay.
Just here's a new zoning district that would basically create that baseline for the additional development piece. So it technically, doesn't cost town meeting anything, but it costs town meeting is some foregone tax revenue from that development. But if you don't do it, you don't get the tax revenue anyway. So,
No, it's just overlay district zoning things are often tend to be discussed at length
Yeah,
in
yeah.
town, and I'm just curious what
it's not really a zoning.
presented and how that would, correlate with zoning that we have in place.
It's
And
not zoning.
again, all towards, building consensus for
it's
it.
not zoning per se, and what it doesn't do, it doesn't give you the right to build anything new here that you can't build already. But in fact, what we probably would need to do is to have a zoning update. It makes it easier to build along Route 9. And my vision has been sort of take 1,000 feet on each side of Route 9 and create an overlay district that allows more commercial development. along
So,
it.
so if I understand it then, so it's not, so by creating the overlay district, it's not, allowing anything beyond what our zoning does,
Right.
but that which is developed within that overlay.
Yes,
consistent with our zoning,
Yes.
qualifies for
A portion of that would
a
be,
portion of that.
Incremental tax revenue from that.
Yeah.
Compared against the baseline number from the beginning point, whatever that is.
That would make up what they call the sewer district.
yeah, in effect,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the things they said was that you can only, the money that comes in can only be spent within that district. So, so the sewer districts, so if we use the golf course for disposal, the golf course would have to be part of that overlay. But, yeah, it was certainly an interesting idea that, I think we're gonna have to, in the next 6 to 9 months, really begin to take a serious look at how do we pay for this, because it's gonna be a mix of grants and betterments and fees and possibly some of this dip. Because in the Lombardo report, I think that the number was 35 million. I'm assuming it's not going to get any cheaper. So but in any event, that I thought that was a really an interesting tool that we can use.
Have to have a figure someplace.
Pardon?
You have to have a figure someplace.
Yeah.
I have a question. The Cape, most of the Cape, the way I understand it, is under some kind of state mandate,
Yeah.
Right.
okay? Does that give them more of a leg up, so to speak, on some of these?
It may.
Creative
Yeah, it's a
funding.
good question, because it may,
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're doing an environmental, they're under some huge order, I don't know if it's just state or federal, but at least state, to protect all the estuaries and the bays and the streams from nutrients from the septic systems.
from a very basic, and I'm so out of my league on this stuff, I'll be very honest with you. But the thing is that I think one of the things that we're talking about is this gonna be like a use kind of charge, like a district, okay? Or
No.
which would be
Not the
obviously,
diff thing,
right,
not the diff funding.
Not the dish thing, but
Separate
certainly
tax increment.
anybody who flushes is going to
well, see, that's the question, so is it gonna be like in a lot of towns?
Oh, yeah.
You get mandated that you have to connect.
Yeah.
To the, is that what this is gonna
That's our
be?
choice. We could do that however we want.
Well, I think they all do that. They, like, you have to, because you can't sit here and just say, Lombardo says all these gallons you're gonna get from all these office buildings, as an underlying, and then you're gonna get new stuff. But if you don't make them come in 2 years or something, force them, that, we're gonna shut off the town water to you. Everyone down at Cape, I own a commercial property in Chatham with 2 businesses, and I was forced to.
Right, but that's a
connect.
commercial property, I'm.
Oh,
thinking
no,
from-
homeowners are Orleans, I know specifically, because it's in our little paper that we share with Orleans. All groups, some are coming in and complaining, but they're all under edicts. They have different dates. When the sewer went in front of the house 3 years ago, they had 3 years to connect. And there's penalties, and
Okay.
everyone has to connect in the district.
Understood.
Yeah.
But the way I understand it is that's because there's a mandate from above saying that sewers are going away versus here, we don't have that.
I've understood that.
Am
that would work.
I getting into the weeds on this, or do you understand what I'm
That's a good
talking about?
question.
No.
We need to figure that out, not today.
But aren't we protecting the reservoir?
well, then they may want to
No,
Potentially.
potentially,
I mean, that might be a good,
but yeah,
I've heard that work both ways. I've heard systems where you gotta join, others where it's an option. So I don't know exactly what the requirements are.
Yeah.
It's something we need to figure out.
there's no question about it, there's a lot of sort of policy, but and who's going to be required to connect and
Right.
who's
Yeah.
got the option to connect. My impression is that in the Fayetteville neighborhood, the soils are poor, and if your septic system fails, this may be best thing since buttered toast,
Right,
so to
which
speak.
is only found out when somebody sells.
Yeah, but
There may be more leverage someplace like that when there's a
Okay,
wider
alright.
problem to force people.
So that's a question.
Well,
on my
maybe like a
radar.
town like Easton, that's not under that. You could find out,
Yep, what they did.
you know, are they gonna require everyone to hook up? You know, legally, can you do that?
Okay,
That's really
so
what we're
Easton isn't. That's
Well,
interesting.
no, but
Don't know.
Easton's in the, you know, down, where's it near?
Not on the Cape.
So you're thinking East.
Oh, it's not the Cape.
No, Easton.
Estham
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
Eaeston.
Eastham is on the Cape. Easton is down
That's
near Fox,
So
beyond
in-
Foxborough.
Yeah, like that area.
Right now, there's some houses. So they would be very much more like this town.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I actually, I was gonna suggest that maybe we do a field trip of some form to go and at least, or invite somebody from Easton to, join us in a meeting and tell us their experience, because, I think that would be,
That'd be an interesting example.
yeah, let's not reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
I did do a little more poking at the option for a third party, that is a private enterprise actually building and operating wastewater treatment plant. I reached out to the Public Utilities Commission, and after running the battering ram at the door a couple of times, getting our state rep involved, I got an answer which was, as near as I could tell, they thought I was speaking Babylonian. That they had no concept of the idea of a private wastewater. I think it was disappointing, just, that it was a go away, don't bother me. And if you're gonna do that, you have to have a Public Utilities Commission. But
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I know there's Pine Hills and the Plymouth area. There's two separate private sewage treatment plants to serve those two neighborhoods. There's two big neighborhoods there. No, not nearly the size of what that is Southborough, but they got permitted, approved, built. They're maintained by a private sewer treatment facility.
so it's an entirely private system. And what do they serve?
I know the residents. I'm not sure about. I don't know if there's any like small commercial or retail on the site that I'm not sure of. But I know that one of the ways where one of the methods they employ to make this go easier is called you might know this much better than I do. I got this from talking from a friend at work, is the Interbasin Transfer Act. Do you know about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so because we are an MWRA, we use MWRA for water. We could consider contacting MWRA for this, just to help us facilitate the whole process, because that would
I've talked to them a little bit about that actually, and the concept there, as I understand it, is if we actually get our water from MWRA, it comes out of a particular watershed area. If we actually send our effluent to another watershed area, that creates the requirement for additional permitting and negotiation, whatever. So as long as you stay within your same watershed area for both incoming and outgoing water,
the part of the interbasin.
it's a lot easier. So, and I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, since we don't know things about site and so forth here, but that's a consideration that MWRA always raises. It says that's interbasin is going on, then you got to jump through more hoops there. So
I'll see if I can get more information about the two in Pine Hills if there's.
That'd be terrific.
Pine Hills though could be a private entity there that contracts. Pine Hills is a big residential development area there, right? I've seen that.
It's huge.
Yeah, that could be a private system that they set up for that development, and not a public utility kind of thing, potentially. I can envision how that.
It's entirely private.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that doesn't go through the PUC here at all, which makes it easier.
Yeah, I've been down there a few times. I think that's probably gonna end up just like Madison Place.
Yeah.
We built that for those apartments.
Bigger
They
version.
built that for 2 golf courses and 1,000 houses.
Yeah,
And just run it whatever. And we had to set up a new entity to run the wastewater treatment plant.
Mhm.
It's probably gonna be similar to that. They're now grabbing stuff down the street, from existing homeowners.
Right.
So is that for the management of it, or
I
does
I'm not an expert, but the way I understand it is if you can find a company, I think you mentioned it was Viola or others do
Yeah.
this, well, they'll actually they'll install, implement, service, manage from soup to nuts. There's other
Oh,
ones that
okay,
will just
yeah.
install and then other ones that will just manage, but if you, one of the advantages of working with the ones who do the whole system, the whole vertical integration is that you're with them from day one. And they understand your system, they know how it's been built and
And I'm sorry if I missed it. Did you say the town where they have done this?
it's in Plymouth,
Plymouth. Oh, okay.
because the Pine Hills is a residential development in Plymouth.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw a news story of Veolia, it's probably under the gun for polluting Ecuador or someplace where there's a huge system going on. Poison the swamps or something, it's not good.
I think if you're in that business, that just comes with the territory of some,
Apparently,
yeah.
anyway. So, what's next?
Okay, I think sort of the last thing is to sort of make a plan now. Now that we've done the EOI, we've got to actually make the application. So I'm gonna turn that over to Claire and she can tell us sort of what our next steps are.
So, two things. So the two EOIs, one is for the downtown district for the $2 million as discussed previously.
Yeah,
Just to rewind, said Bob, you missed this conversation that Gil Lombardo said that we ought to consider downtown system. Because his estimate of downtown required capacity was like 10,900 gallons a day. So if you can limit that to under 10, then it's a fairly simple system. And there's a parcel downtown there that one could think about using that we could acquire behind the nail salon.
So that wouldn't be tied into the plans?
Potentially not tied into the plant, could be a freestanding thing because there's a need downtown. And that's something that he believes can happen fairly quickly and be useful. And there might be some grant money for it. So we decided to put in an EOI for that to see what was out there with it. But who knows where that goes? But if you don't ask, you don't get an answer. So that's one. And the other one is the bigger one from the larger plant.
The other thing, the way I understood it, and again, my limited knowledge on all this is, one of the things that if you think about it, this isn't something that all happens in a year or two. And you can kind of develop these modular systems or module steps, so to speak. That
Phased
could all be,
implementation.
yeah, phased. So in other words, just as in downtown, the downtown district, the Tony Kwan 80,000 gallon septic tank that's never been used. Okay, could be used. And it's not, stop me any of you guys if I'm wrong, it's not totally out of the question that you could pump it down if you were going to go that route. The treated effluent to the golf course. Just kind of thinking, forward.
First, you gotta find Tony, then
I heard he's back.
get him to agree. He was for a while, I don't know. Still, anyway, but that,
Oh,
it's
okay,
out there as a
okay.
possibility.
So
Okay.
So just one of the things that's kind of interesting when you talk about downtown and it's part of the whole thing. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I looked at the grant application, the whole 18 pages of it. There is a tremendous amount of work that has already been done. When Marika was here, the work that she did with the research, the slides, all of the stuff can just pretty much be copy and pasted as the background
This is for
information
the downtown piece.
for the downtown piece, okay? As part of the whole downtown initiative.
Yeah.
That work has been done. The part that just needs to be done is the technical part of what would actually be covered with the $2 million that is being asked. So
I would
that's,
think similarly, I would think for the larger plant between Lombardo and Weston and Sampson, we got a fair amount of stuff on the shelf for that as well.
oh, absolutely, yeah.
So,
And so all of that, it just really needs to be tied together. There's only 2 months left before that has to be in. And I would just highly suggest, I am more than glad to put together all of the pieces of the grant, which are essentially like boilerplate. And all of because I have all that stuff. I'm in the process of, I posted a lot of it out on the OneDrive that I had Hassan set up for you guys to use. I don't know if have you been able to get into it?
I did try.
Okay, all right. But it's kind of like one-stop shopping for all of the documents that are there. This is the kind of information that they're looking for to be provided in we don't need, I can do that part. We don't
Okay.
need a grant writer to do
And so
that.
if you can put the grant applications on the OneDrive, and then
Yes,
maybe we can do is start breaking up pieces of it to
there you
take
go.
a look.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Because there's, as I put in my notes someplace here, it's kind of like who's gonna do what? And you're exactly right. You just assign it out. Everybody has their time. You give them a date of when it has to be, and it goes all the way from Mark Purple to.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not, the heavy lift of it is the technical stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So who's gonna do the technical stuff?
Well, my thing is that we also have the Route 9 one, okay?
Yeah.
We have somebody who's already spoken to you guys, who knows both sides of it, has done the recommendation in an action plan. And I would just suggest, you need a price of what it's gonna cost.
I mean,
To just write that part?
Yeah.
You need a price of what that's gonna cost. We have the money in the current budget. Okay, that can get used up before the end of the fiscal year.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's just gonna go back.
How much left?
Well,
Yeah,
I'm just looking at, for example, EDC has $8,500 left in it. And
$8,000.
I will be willing to bet, as sure as I'm sitting here, there's other departments.
Well,
Well-
we have, I think it's $25,000 in the consulting budget.
There's like 17 from planning board that's been around for 10 years, right?
So
Bingo, but
So
that's,
based on the-
that's for zoning. I'll
based
get to
on-
that one later on, because that's kind of a sore spot as a taxpayer for me.
based on the amount that Lombardo would charge, say, of their procurement
If you,
laws.
if
that
you
come
guys
into
want
play,
me, I'll just,
that would preclude us from a direct select. Do we need to like get quotes from others, et cetera? I don't know what the procurement.
if it's under
requirements are.
$10,000,
Well, is it gonna be under 10,000 to do it?
We could ask.
I haven't talked to him about it, but I would be willing to bet. If you look what he put together for an action plan for 9,000. I mean, granted, I did squeeze him a little bit on that one, but this isn't being recorded.
Or you're a person, but a gentleman, then again,
I'm just.
Yeah,
I'll get it.
I'll say not you again.
What I do is I'll check with Mark and find out what the put it out to bid number is.
I think it's 10. But.
Somebody told me it's a
I
little.
thought
does
they
it-
changed it.
Alan,
Can I jump in?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
he's
well,
good.
I mean, we can-
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the threshold's bumped up a few years back. It's actually up to $50,000. But if this is professional services, then there are exemptions from having to go out to bid. Now, that being said, that's not to say we shouldn't solicit a request for services from professionals. So qualifications based.
And Bill, do you have any doubts that Lombardo is qualified to do this?
I really don't have any direct experience with Lombardo, so I'm not comfortable saying.
Okay, thanks.
do you have other firms that you have worked with that have done this kind of stuff that you would want think that would be good for the committee to reach out to?
I'm more familiar with Weston and Sampson's a good firm.
Yeah.
Camp Dresser McKee, Metcalf and Eddy, which I'm not sure if they've been absorbed with someone else, but they were big in wastewater. Tata and Howard's in the next town over.
And Weston and Sampsonville has worked for us and has stuff on the shelf for us. So that would be one that has a real head start on this, certainly, as Lombardo does. So maybe getting a quote from the two of those. Sadly, you got to get it done before the end of the fiscal year here. But here it is. time potentially to do that. So Al,
Yeah.
you're gonna follow up with Mark. to
Yeah.
Just confirm the procurement stuff.
But assuming that,
Well,
the,
isn't that what he just provided?
Yeah,
yeah, but he's
Well,
gonna,
but there's a process too, to make sure that we're. Right
But-
page.
just to get the ball rolling, wouldn't it be easiest just to call or email Lombardo tomorrow and
Yeah.
get the estimate?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
see if
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
and if it's well under it seemed like that last report that I read was pretty good.
Yeah.
That was not a lot of money.
But we do want to connect with Mark.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
stuff going on where he's
Yeah.
surprised by what's happening.
And by the way,
Well, we can do it in parallel. We don't have to do it in serial.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's also potentially worth talking to Weston and Sampson as well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Two.
but those are the two firms that have sort of familiarity with us.
so what you are specifically asking for is to fill out the technical part of the downtown, the $2 million
Downtown and then
and a
also,
separate.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, and,
separate for Route 9.
yeah, all right, I will get on it with Mark, tomorrow. And then, okay, I think we got our marching orders for there. Is there any other business people have that?
I was thinking after the last meeting, and Claire jumped in at the end, my ally, and I've spoken to a few developer friends of mine, a couple of probably the biggest ones in Southborough. And everyone said, if we're gonna put sewer in, we need to get more opportunity. To me, one of the primary purposes of this, if not the primary, is to get a bigger tax base for the
Right.
town. I mean, or else, why are we
Yeah,
just
yeah.
helping out? Like,
Practice.
like shrubs and trees is a good example. I'm friends with the owner there. And he's got a nice dry 6-acre parcel. You could put up 70 condos, or you could put up a office building or whatever.
Yep.
And but right now with the septics and stuff, he can't do a ton of stuff. But if he had the sewer, he could do a lot. But he also is gonna be constrained with these brutal site plan reviews with the planning board and heights of buildings and all this other stuff. That, do you, like, if you're gonna spend all this money to get sewer down to his property, that's just a little tiny example. You really want him to get a 50 or $70 million project there for tax pay purposes.
Yeah.
And not a 12,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
he might get now or something, or
Yes.
8 or something. You really want to maximize, kind of give up that this is a bucolic stretch of road through Southborough.
Yep.
And, if you got that in your mind, just to go up on Route 30,
Mhm.
but that this should be, like Newton, not a high rise, but,
Yeah.
you want buildings going up. And
You want tax
and a lot
base
of-
on
and a
it.
lot of it.
Yeah,
It's a commercial generating corridor.
yeah,
Yeah.
But I want to come back. You said he's got 6 acres of dry land. Would he be interested in any effluent?
Yeah.
Because we have a ton to offer up.
I know, he told me a price though, when I was looking for apartments, and I but that was a little steep. I think he told me $1 million an acre or something, so.
But
I
again,
guess that
right.
property,
You need to have a parallel track here. You need zoning and the permitting stuff
Right.
straightened out, which is a challenge. Mr. Belniak's issue here.
my only concern is, and I hear this, I know nothing about the planning board, I've never been before them.
They're difficult.
My visits were all zoning board and
Yeah,
Concom. And Claire, you kind of jumped in on that meeting, 2 meetings ago. If the planning board has the mentality that they don't want to see any more expansion.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of planning boards.
Yeah.
Planning boards have this kind of thing like, no, you can only put 2 lots there, you can't put 3 lots there, and they'll come up with a whole pile of reasons. And they've never been a proponent of any kind of growth. And, I built 600 houses in Westboro, Northborough, Shrewsbury,
Yeah.
Grafton, Upton, Hopkinton. No one ever gave me an idea how I can get some more houses. I just was beat down every stepping away every place. And I'm talking 37 years.
Yep.
Including the town as Sudbury sued me and dragged me to court because I was trying to build apartments up there.
Yep.
But so the question is, are they gonna, since this is being determined by the planning board, should there be perhaps not at some appropriate time, this rezoning,
Amen, yeah.
and more like the MW, the MWRA, no, MBTA zoning,
Yep.
where these are all allowed by right.
Yes.
There's a review, but you're allowed X amount of square feet and buildings and bedrooms or whatever it is.
Yep.
And have the town meeting say, look, if we're gonna, here's the sewer meeting, but if you want to get the money for the pay for the thing,
Yep.
Sewer warrant, here's the zoning warrant that goes with it.
Done.
And so it's way too early for that,
Well.
but I seem to see all this work.
Yeah.
Just to
Yeah.
get sewer to the people that already have septic systems.
Right, but it's not too early though. I mean, we actually talked about the need to get coordination between select board, development process, planning board, zoning board. And I think that it is appropriate to actually start having those conversations, because you're right, Bob, you don't want to wind up at the altar and say, oops, you're not going to get cooperation from planning or zoning or whatever to allow it to happen in the way it needs to happen after you spend a lot of money and effort to actually get the wastewater.
So to give you excuse me, to give you an idea, there is a group that's starting to look at, not the wholesale zoning, but is there some low hanging fruit we could deal with? And so we've been looking at, the industrial zone, which is the EMC and the Park Central parcels. And, some of us have been advocating for, expanding the, by right from 50,000 feet to 100 or 200,000 square feet, that sort of thing. And, providing a lot more flexibility in terms of permitted use and, because those are all things, we've got to make this a place where people want to locate businesses. And it's a challenge.
It's clear we're not now.
Yeah.
So we've got to do something about that.
So I think you're gonna find a unanimity here at this table.
But again, I think you got to start having those conversations, and some of those have started to happen informally. And I think we got to continue and accelerate that. So it's sort of parallel track. But you're right, you don't want to wind up out of sync and wasting money, time, effort, and support.
Okay, good.
No easy solution.
Yes, ma'am.
If I may. In my simple mind, it seems to me that your zoning, if we had the kind of zoning that developers would like to see, to be able to have the confidence in putting some even seed money, upfront money to help this whole process, and have the confidence that the town was serious about it.
Mhm.
And that buildings were going to get built in order to satisfy Al's slide number 1 that said why we're all sitting here trying to figure this out. Okay. If that was the case, okay, it seems to me that the zoning has to be pretty much along the way in order to be able to determine your sewer capacity that you want.
Right.
I mean, to just net it out very simply.
Mhm.
Okay, there's almost like in project management software where you have several tasks. They end up, they both end up at the same point so that then you can move together. You have to have the zoning done, and then you're ready to go ahead with everything that you've done for the sewer, and then just figure out the capacities from there.
But
Take that one step further. What you want to be able to do as this project is going along, you want to be able to be working with the developers who you need to partner with. You know that a whole lot better than I do.
Mhm.
Okay, and whatever it takes to, get beyond the thing of, Southborough is not necessarily developer friendly. Is that? Okay.
Yeah,
Diplomatic.
Generally speaking,
But that's why we start talking with planning and zoning
Mhm.
right now.
Right.
We're-
Okay,
So-
so. One of the things that, one of the things that. I know zoning isn't easy, it takes a whole long time. But I still think, and when I look at all of the other towns that have received one-stop money. For planning, to hire outside professional planning people who do this all the time. We are not the only town that have this situation.
But you gotta get the planning board on board for that, which.
To
we
have them work with
which
the
we-
planning
which we
board.
haven't done. So that's what we're-
Understood.
That's what we're starting to
Yeah.
have happen here. So-
And, we have, somebody who, will probably win a planning board seat. Okay, but the thing is that without doing that, and I understand that there has been a step along to it.
Mhm.
And it's probably been something that's been a year, okay? I think that I don't see how zoning. For what we need to get the property tax revenue that Al started this whole thing with. Can happen, and take 2 to 3 years to have happen.
Well, that's why we're starting to work on it. So. We've got to start pushing on this, having those conversations.
because I think the selling point to the town at a town meeting when they're appropriating or rezoning is, I have no idea what the tax base is. I'm just throwing out a number. Let's say the commercial is 300 million in town here. I have no idea. It might be 700 or 300. Let's just say it's 300.
about 600 million.
600. But wouldn't it be nice to go in and say, this is gonna go up to,
Or we can double it.
it double or triple it, some number that says we anticipate that will, and then what will happen is everything's shifting down on the residential people. I mean, that's gotta be the winning storyline.
That's right.
Well, that's a message that we have to sort of continuously talk about. And in fact, one of the things we need to do is, talk to the capital budget committee. Because, we're sneaking up on having to put, a big chunk of money in the capital plan. So,
Yeah. But again, it's hard to do that though without the planning board involved in the process.
Mhm.
And again, they are not the ones who are gonna vote it up or down at town meeting. But it's a lot tougher if the planning board is in there saying it's a terrible idea, they don't support it. So you gotta have all these pieces.
Right,
as
right.
Possible,
Right,
working together on it.
but if they're gonna fight you, how far down the road do you wanna go with this whole
That's right,
project?
absolutely. You gotta know that it's all gonna work together.
Yep.
Before you spend too much effort and money
Yep.
on this particular project.
Have you seen Al's slide number 1?
I don't know, so no, it's the famous one, number one.
Okay, 2 things.
I-
One, instead of actually giving a figure of what is it $300 million or whatever, what Al did was he gave the change and you did it, Al, but he gave the change in your property, the shift in your property tax and the
Okay,
commercial.
all right,
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the big thing. And then the
I have
other,
that at home, but you
Yeah.
gave me that.
yeah,
okay, and then the other one, that's, I think on the same slide, is you came up with 150 million of building.
Additional
160.
taxable.
Yeah.
Property value.
Yeah, we need to
In order to swing it, stop swinging it.
swing it back to 80-20.
Right, okay,
So.
So I think
Bob,
that's-
You gotta get to work.
Well, no, I think you
That's
could,
what's-
100, if all you need is 100, I think $400 million
Yeah.
more if you do it right.
Yeah, we gotta-
Because of what I mentioned last time, it sounds like I'm retired, so I'm not developing anything, but you could do a 55 and older community in a high, a 3 or 4 story building.
Yep.
In each of those units, might sell for 550 or something, and there's 50 million in taxable there, and you could do or you could do get the like market rate condominiums.
Mhm.
like the 55 and old is not gonna have any kids.
Yeah.
Very few of the market rate condominiums are gonna have kids.
Yeah.
And, just a couple residential projects, 2 or 3, let's say, you could even cap the number of residential in the zone or something. But you could grab $200 million worth of assessed value. Now, it might be considered residential, but who cares?
Yeah.
Just that, and then office buildings, I think 4 stories is a big thing.
Or commercial, I mean, life science, again.
Yeah.
Westbrook has life science stuff pending, that they can't
Yeah.
support now, so.
And, each one of these can grab you another 50 million, 50 million, 50 million. And
Again, unless you get all the pieces working together, it's not gonna work.
I mentioned, I think last time, in New Jersey, where they knocked, I mentioned that, you might have been on or not, but they essentially knocked down all their existing office buildings from the 70s. And they're building
Started over.
2,100 residential units, buildings. They're building commercial, like a couple plazas and all kinds of stuff. They basically, the developer said, we're not filling these office buildings, and look, I'd rather knock it down. And then they got new zoning going, and the thing's a boom town now for construction. I'm just guessing that they're gonna 20-fold or 10-fold their tax base when they're all done. Empty office buildings don't collect many taxes.
Yeah.
You knock down, 80 acres or 40 acres or whatever, and then put up all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's a ton of money.
Big money. I think you could sell that to town meeting, but you gotta have all the pieces working.
Yes.
together.
Zoning is of 2/3.
Right, yeah.
Which is tough.
For a zoning change, what about an overlay? Is that civil majority?
If it's a zoning overlay, that's still 2/3.
So
The downtown was 2/3.
my whole point, I don't disagree with anything that's said, but if it's not built through consensus, then it's not
Yeah.
gonna happen.
Yeah, it's a big communication job.
Yep.
Oh, I totally agree. That's might as well, be out in the room right now.
Yeah, start early.
Well, but again, the property tax relief message is a very powerful one.
Yep.
The bulk of what I hear from residents now is my property tax is too high. You gotta figure out a way to get me some relief. And this is the only hope. I mean, we're not gonna cut costs to get to where we need to be. We gotta generate revenue. And Route 9 is the only asset that I'm aware of that we have to do that. So I think that's a pretty convincing story for people.
All right,
Not easy, but
I think we got our marching orders for the short term. Let's talk about when we're gonna get together next. The 7th is town meeting, so life is going to be crazy between
before
now
you-
and then.
We do have an attendee online.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
So, the attendee that's online, if you'd like to, share a comment, just raise your hand and we can, take you off mute.
we don't have public comment here, but
well,
I assume we meant to have one. Okay, I'm not seeing a hand raised, so,
Okay.
continue.
all right. So let's see, after town meeting, I'm gonna say the 8th is the 7th is town meeting. The 8th is the day after town meeting.
potentially town meeting. if it
What?
goes- Potentially town meeting.
Potentially town meeting, depending on,
Unlikely, but
yeah,
maybe the week.
Uh,
of the 8th and 14th.
some new excitement is coming up recently, but, so talking about Wednesday, the 9th or Thursday, the 10th.
Do you kind of want to, going forward, have it like the same night every week? Or
I
have it
think,
bounce around? Just throwing that out for planning purposes.
What's the Thursday of that week?
Thursday, the 10th.
I'm good on, I'm coming back from Charlottesville that morning, but.
I
That's
guess
fine.
6:30 and then
I
5:30.
might be able to do remote, but I'm not gonna be able to do it in person.
Okay, but the remote is fine,
Yeah.
I'll try and get this room again.
I can do either one.
Pardon?
I can do either one.
Okay,
Let's do
Claire?
that.
I can do it.
I think I can do either one too. All right, then, I'm gonna propose the 10th.
I think that's a great proposal.
6:30.
6:30 work for everybody?
Got it.
All right.
So one of the topics, if you're, do you want Me to send suggestions later on?
Yeah,
Oh, you know.
yeah, no, send suggestions.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
For agenda topics for next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
yeah. Yeah, if you send it to me, I'll put them on. We can,
all right,
we can gab.
okay.
All right, any other business?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks a lot.
Good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
All right, take care.
Alan, thanks for being the